These scenes from Southern California are really scary, and I wanted to just offer a little bit of my experience having worked wildfires for a long time as a correspondent. I did them for Al Jazeera and I did them for NBC News. And here's what it's like to be in one of these situations, and some of the things that I sort of have taken away from a career in which I did this a fair amount. Now, I was a technology correspondent first and foremost. I would really only get called into these when they were happening really fast and they needed somebody on the ground right away. There were general assignment correspondents, and I'm seeing a lot of them covering this one for NBC right now, who did this more often than I did, but I did a fair number of them. So you're immediately called and told, go now. And you bring, so California has these very specific rules that are very interesting, in which if you're an accredited journalist, you're allowed to go right up to the flames. You can go right through a police cordon and go. The police are obligated to let you go. In exchange, they are saying, we won't rescue you if you get yourself in trouble. And so you're required, or you need to bring your own protective gear. And so I had this red bag that I carried. It used to be here in my house, and I would grab it and go. And in it is, I've got a helmet, I've got eye masks, I've got special boots that let you step into a burning pit and not catch on fire, flame retardant fabric. I even had one of those emergency tents, the ones that you would put up over you if you were suddenly caught and trapped, in the flames. I never had to use that, but I did wear the gear all the time. And you're taught after you come home from a fire to immediately wash all that gear. You don't wear it into the house even if you can help it, because it's all contaminated by the ash that's come at you from burning structures. Because the stuff, if a couch catches fire or a kitchen full of appliances catches fire, that stuff on your clothes is very toxic. And so you're supposed to wash it right away. This is something to know if you're dealing with this in the aftermath of this fire. So you also learn, so you wherever you can you don't bring your own car, is a lesson that correspondents are taught. You rent a car immediately. So I'd grab the bag, I'd go to the airport, get a car, and go. And what you're taught to do with the car that you bring is you back it in wherever you're going to stop, so that you're not you're never going to be backing blindly in the smoke. You're going to always be able to pull out forward. You leave your windows down so that everyone has access to the car, and you leave the keys not only in the ignition, you leave the car running. And the reason is that if you try and start a gas-powered engine in smoke, there isn't enough oxygen in the air to create the ignition that will start the car. And so you're screwed if you turn off your car. So don't turn off your car in the smoke, is what we're taught. So you're in this kind of like weird sort of netherworld where, it looks like normal life, but the streets are full of smoke and flame, and, nobody's home because everyone's been evacuated. There's police and emergency crews everywhere, and you're just kind of trying to find your way through it to find a place where you can sort of illustrate what's going on. And typically you're assigned a sort of like a minder from the fire department who can help you get around and get to places where you can see the work being done. But you're kind of on your own. And so, in the years that I covered this stuff, I learned a few things. So in California, this open access and the constant wildfire every year means that you're very often kind of in environments where people have seen a lot of this already. And so I wouldn't say that anyone's like used to it, but when you deal with Northern Californians who've been through a wildfire, you typically are talking to people who've been through several. And so you even get used to it after a while, which is weird, but like the human brain sort of develops calluses around this stuff in my experience. But during the pandemic, there were big wildfires in Oregon, which had never happened before. And I was sent all of a sudden up north. I drove hours and hours and hours in the middle of a Sunday afternoon, and then spent the night near Bend, Oregon, which was on fire, which hadn't really happened. And interviewing people up there, in front of like a burning Thai restaurant, right? You're not in some remote rural place. You're in a suburban mall, and talking to people in those places, they were so terrified because they'd never experienced this before. and they really, it was like talking to people who, an asteroid had landed on them. They were so shocked at it, and they would ask me, well, is this going to happen again? And I'd go, yeah, maybe, this is sort of maybe the new reality, and they were just so scared and appalled by that. And I think about people in this fire who haven't really encountered this themselves before, and I'm really feeling for them, because I bet that they are also in this kind of fresh horror kind of way. And then two sort of bigger abstract thoughts. One is insurance. A lot of these people are have already had their insurance dropped or will have it dropped certainly after this. I think insurance in California is going to be in a real crisis. It was already. A lot of people are covered under something called the Fair Plan system, which is wildfire coverage offered by the state, but that's really only designed for a handful of people to get paid back. So it's I think that system is very overtaxed. So I think all of that is in the whole insurance and reinsurance ecosystem, I think, is really going to be in real trouble. And then the last thing is, one crazy thing is, I went and spent time in forests here in California that have sequoias, giant sequoias. And one thing I didn't know about them is that giant sequoias cannot reproduce unless they catch fire. They're supposed to catch fire so that they can release their enormous pine cones and have new trees come out of that. So fire is part of the ecosystem. And in fact, in the old days, before Europeans came to California, the native peoples here would regularly set fire to the landscape and then leave so that it could burn through, it would burn away the underbrush, burn away the stuff that's not supposed to be there, cause the trees to reproduce and create new life. Today, if we were to allow that to happen, it would be so much worse than this kind of natural disaster. This kind of environment wants to burn, has evolved to burn. And so I'm in no way saying that anyone should have to deal with this, but it's not clear to me that there is a good solution for this. People want to live where they want to live, but fire is supposed to move through the ecosystem. And I don't know how we live in harmony with fire. And that's something I think we're going to have to grapple with going forward. So anyway, some thoughts about what it is to be on the ground with one of these fires and what it is to observe them over a career like I have.